Today's episode of Using Tattoos in UFC 4 is going to be sort of a continuation on facial detail. So we'll look at a few more ways we can use tattoos generally on the face and then specifically the nose, lips, chin, and cheeks areas. So let's hop right into it, and to the bottom of the shape section we go, and we grab shapes 187. And we'll start with the cheek area. So I like to place these on the cheek and then mess with the size, shape, and opacity. And depending on what we're going for, we can use these to color the skin, we can use these to make the cheeks rosy, we can use these as makeup. So there we have one placed on her cheek, and now I'm going to duplicate and add one to her forehead, and in this case I'm going to stretch it out and make it bigger. So I'm just trying to slightly color the forehead rather than make a noticeable tattoo on it. Now obviously if we just wanted to cover the entire face in this red color, we could use one of the shapes higher up in the shape section. But in this case, we just want to achieve certain effects on certain spots of the face, which is why the fading tattoos work nicely. So we have different intensities of the red color on her chin, cheek, and forehead. And like I said before, we can swap out the colors for different effects. So I'm just going to switch her cheek tattoo to purple. So now we have makeup on the cheek and then red coloring on her chin and forehead. I used this technique on Santa here, so I used one red fading tattoo on each cheek to give him very rosy cheeks, as well as one on his nose to give him a rosy nose. Becky Lynch, shapes 187 again, in this case a little bit more subtle as we were doing makeup on her cheeks, similar to how we used it around the eyes in the last tutorial. Now here is Macy Barber. We have purple shapes on her cheeks, and it's not for makeup, but rather it was the closest tattoo color that I could find that allowed me to replicate her actual skin color. So we have some faded purple on each of her cheeks as well as her chin, but then we also have a red one on her forehead. And as you can see, they're very subtle, but they add nice detail. Here's one more way I like to use these shapes on the cheek, and that is to add definition to the cheek line. So what I like to do is bring these tattoos down in size and elongate them slightly, and then I'll duplicate until I have enough to form the line that I'm going for. And then once I'm done, I'll go back in and reduce the opacity on each tattoo until I have a level that I'm comfortable with. So there we have a bit of extra definition on her cheek, and here is a case where I used this technique. So in total it was 4 shapes 187 tattoos, 2 on each cheek. As you can see, they're quite subtle but also noticeable enough to help slightly add some definition to his cheeks. And then we also have some red coloring on his nose here in 2 different spots. Same idea here, but different end goal for Harley Quinn. So we weren't trying to color her skin, or we weren't trying to define the cheeks, but rather we were trying to give the effect of smeared or messy makeup. So we used the bottom of the shape section and we used different colors, red on her right, blue on the left, as well as some black shapes. And as I keep saying, there's so many different ways you can use these tattoos, and they're so useful for so many different purposes. Let's move on to the lips. I have a couple of my favorite tattoos on this fighter's belly that I like to use for lips, both lipstick and lip coloring. We'll start simply with the half moons. So I put one on her bottom lip, duplicated it, flipped it to the top, so we have red ones on her top and bottom lips. Now depending on the template you're using, you won't always be able to get away with the same shape for lip coloring. So sometimes you'll just have to experiment with different shapes to get full coverage. But as you can see, we have full color lipstick on there right now. So now I'm going to bring down the opacity. And now we have a lighter shade of red. Now this heart tattoo also works well, oftentimes for the top lip. In this case, it's not fitting well on this template, so I'm not going to use it here, but it's just something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to take this black half moon and do the same thing I did with the first red tattoos. You could obviously use this for lipstick as well, but what I've been finding lately is when I'm making darker skin tone fighters, they often have darker lips than what the templates give us in the game. So I've been using it to just slightly darken my fighters' lips. Here are some examples. So this is Maria Agapova, where I used the red tattoos just to give her lips a slightly brighter color. And then here's a case like I spoke about where I needed to darken someone's lip color. So these were black shapes on Kevin Holland's lips. Back to Harley Quinn, as you can see here, I used a circle on her top lip and then a half moon on the bottom, and these gave us full color lipstick. Moving on to the chin, I don't use this technique often, but it works well when I need it. Some people naturally have a dimple in the middle of their chin or a cleft chin, and to exaggerate that feature, I like to use some sort of dark oval shape or fading dark oval shape. On this example here, we used Shapes 100, and then here we're using Shapes 99 for a slightly different look. The specific tattoo that you use is just going to depend on the result that you're going for. And here's the best example that I have of when I needed this. So this is Rico Verhoeven, and his chin dimple is very pronounced, so I used a black oval on his and made it quite dark. I also like to use similar tattoos for above lip definition. Most of us have a indentation above our lips, and some are more pronounced than others. So just like the chin, I like to take these and place them in a way that they exaggerate the definition above the lip. And we want to make sure we fade it to a point where it's not overly noticeable. And here we end up with very easy techniques to add both chin detail and upper lip detail. Lastly, today we'll have a quick look at the nose. So because we can't independently change the size of the nose at different points in the head sliders area, I oftentimes find that the bottom of the nose is the correct width, but the midpoint of the nose needs to be thinner. So I'll try to go in with Shapes 181 and essentially use them as shaders. And I'll add as many as I need in such a way that I can try to redefine where the width of the nose is. Now, it's not the easiest thing to do, and you have to pay close attention to your opacity, because making these too dark is obviously just going to make it look like these guys have dirt on their face. But if you take your time and you're pretty careful, I find that it at least helps give the impression that the nose is less wide. And here's a couple examples of the finished product. So this is Eminem, and on this one I use Shapes 181 4 times in total, starting at the bottom of the nose and transitioning it up towards the eyebrows to make it look natural. Spider-Man, same idea, but in this case I used a different tattoo, Shapes 9, which is a fading black half circle, and then oriented it in such a way that it flowed from the bottom of the nose all the way up to the eyebrow with only one tattoo. And I think it did a pretty good job of thinning the nose effectively. It might even be better than the Shapes 181 technique that we showed on Eminem. Maybe not overall, but definitely specifically for this template at least. And that's going to be it for today's tutorial. Hopefully that's some more ideas for people to mess around with. And in the next one, I believe we're going to be looking at cuts and scars.